1. When designing a training module for the Airside Vehicle Operators Permit, AVOP, which instructional strategy best ensures adult learners retain safety-critical information? A. Passive lecture delivery. B. Interactive scenario-based learning. C. Rote memorization of rules. D. Peer-led open discussions without structure. 2. A new AVOP candidate demonstrates poor understanding of runway markings. Which evaluation method most effectively assesses their readiness to operate? A. Multiple choice written test only. B. Oral questioning about airport layout. C. Practical driving assessment on airside routes. D. Peer group feedback after a classroom session. 3. During curriculum development for AVOP training, which component ensures compliance with regulatory requirements? A. Inclusion of cultural anecdotes. B. Integration of ICAO and airport authority standards. C. General driving laws without airport context. D. Mentoring stories from senior operators. 4. When mentoring a new AVOP trainee, which communication technique best reinforces compliance with controlled area procedures? A. Providing direct, specific feedback during on-site practice. B. Encouraging self-reflection without guidance. C. Relying solely on written manuals. D. Avoiding correction to maintain trainee confidence. 5. An effective evaluation strategy for AVOP candidates includes: A. Only assessing theoretical knowledge. B. Combining written, oral, and practical performance assessments. C. Prioritizing peer evaluations over instructor-led evaluations. D. Testing once at the beginning of training only. 6. Which principle of adult learning is most applicable when teaching AVOP candidates about responding to airside emergencies? A. Adults resist practical applications of theory. E. Adults learn best through abstract memorization. C. Adults value real-world, problem-centered instruction. D. Adults require minimal connection between training and practice. 7. A key regulatory compliance issue in AVOP training is ensuring: A. Drivers learn at their own pace without deadlines. E. Training aligns with airport authority operational requirements. C. Only soft skills are prioritized over technical skills. D. Peer mentoring is the sole assessment method. 8. When developing curriculum for AVOP drivers, the inclusion of case studies primarily serves to: A. Add filler material to the course. B. Encourage rote memorization. C. Provide real-world examples to reinforce regulatory compliance. D. Reduce the need for formal testing. 9. Which feedback method most effectively promotes safe airside driving practices in trainees? A. Generalized praise without detail. B. Immediate, constructive feedback tied to specific behaviors. C. Delayed evaluation after several weeks. D. Ignoring errors to avoid discouragement. 10. In designing AVOP assessments, which approach ensures valid measurement of competence? A. Using only written multiple-choice exams. B. Observing real-time vehicle operations in controlled zones. C. Asking candidates to list rules from memory. D. Allowing trainees to self-report their skills. 11. Which communication strategy best prevents misunderstandings during AVOP instruction? A. Use of technical jargon without clarification. B. Two-way communication with open-ended questioning. C. Sole reliance on handouts. D. Minimal interaction to avoid overloading learners. 12. When mentoring new AVOP drivers, a senior operator should: A. Model correct procedures and explain the rationale behind them. E. Avoid demonstrating to encourage independent trial and error. C. Focus on shortcuts to save time. D. Limit feedback to end-of-course evaluations. 13. If formative evaluation in AVOP training is used to A. Certify drivers at the end of the course. E. Provide ongoing feedback for skill improvement during training. C. Replace summative assessments. D. Avoid accountability in skill demonstration. 14. Which instructional strategy supports adult learners in recalling complex taxiway lighting systems? A. Visual aids and guided practice sessions. B. Reading long text passages. C. Assigning independent research without feedback. D. Relying solely on memory drills. 15. To comply with regulatory requirements, AVOP trainers must A. Incorporate airport-specific operational protocols. B. Teach only generic driving theory. C. Reduce training duration for experienced drivers. D. Prioritize peer mentoring over formal testing. 16. Which principle of mentoring best supports retention of AVOP safety protocols? A. Encouraging reflection after practical experiences. B. Avoiding discussion of mistakes. C. Relying only on textbook learning. D. Reducing trainee responsibility for self-monitoring. 17. When developing AVOP curriculum, which adult learning principle is most critical for ensuring long-term retention? A. Repetition without context. B. Immediate application of knowledge in real-world practice. C. Passive listening to instructor lectures. D. Sole reliance on peer-led discussions. 18. The most effective way to assess trainee knowledge of radio communication protocols is A. Asking them to define terms. B. Having them demonstrate live communication with ATC in controlled scenarios. C. Assigning essay-based homework. D. Providing only written exams. 19. Which evaluation tool is best suited to measure a trainee's ability to navigate complex apron environments safely? A. Group discussions. B. Scenario-based practical tests. C. True-false quizzes. D. Peer grading systems. 20. When teaching AVOP rules, aligning instruction with adult learning theory requires A. Linking new concepts to learners' prior driving experiences. B. Avoiding reference to real-life driving contexts. C. Presenting rules in isolation without application. D. Using rigid memorization drills. 21. A communication breakdown occurs when an AVOP instructor fails to A. Encourage feedback and questions from learners. Repeat complex instructions for clarity. C. Provide written references. D. Deliver only one-way lectures. 22. Which mentoring strategy best ensures trainees internalize safe crossing of active taxiways? A. Real-time guided practice with corrective feedback. B. Verbal explanation only. C. Assigning reading materials without demonstration. D. Allowing trainees to self-test without oversight. 23. When evaluating AVOP candidates, summative assessments are designed to A. Provide continuous feedback throughout training. B. Certify final competence after instruction is complete. C. Replace all formative evaluations. D. Focus only on peer observations. 24. In AVOP curriculum development, integrating simulations primarily benefits trainees by A. Allowing safe practice of high-risk scenarios. E. Replacing all practical assessments. C. Limiting exposure to real-world conditions. D. Reducing the need for feedback from mentors. 25. Which adult learning principle should guide AVOP trainers in teaching hazard recognition? A. Adults prefer to engage with practical problem-solving exercises. B. Adults learn best when excluded from the learning process. C. Adults benefit most from abstract theories. D. Adults prefer passive listening over active participation. 26. To ensure regulatory compliance, AVOP trainers should document A. Training content, trainee performance, and evaluation results. B. Only informal discussions with trainees. C. Peer mentoring activities without assessments. D. Verbal instructions without written record. 27. Which communication method ensures clarity when explaining complex AVOP right-of-way rules? A. Combining visual diagrams with verbal explanations. E. Delivering lengthy monologues. C. Allowing trainees to discover rules independently. D. Relying solely on written manuals. 28. When mentoring trainees in AVOP radio discipline, the mentor should emphasize A. Clear, concise, and standardized phraseology. B. Informal conversational style. C. Reliance on memory without practice. D. Encouraging improvisation of call signs. 29. In AVOP training, role-playing exercises are most effective for teaching A. Abstract theories about adult learning. B. Real-world responses to emergency or unusual events. C. Memorization of technical definitions. E. Independent research methods. 30. Which principle of evaluation ensures fairness in AVOP testing? A. Using standardized assessment criteria for all candidates. B. Allowing each instructor to grade differently. C. Relying on subjective tier reviews. D. Skipping evaluation to reduce pressure.